We all know the iconic monsters in film. Frankenstein's creature, Dracula, Wolfman, the creature from the Black Lagoon, aliens, zombies. But what always interested me was the impact society had on these films when they had their debut. By the way, an amazing book on this topic is Fear Itself by Melvin E. Matthews Jr. I read this book in college and it was kind of life changing at the time. I was bored, I picked it up, I immediately devoured it in like a week, and it's safe to say it taught me a lot about what I'm talking about today. Anyways, let's get into the video. As humans, we fear the unknown and what we don't understand. And I think that makes a lot of sense of why monster films are so beloved and have always been for a long time. A lot of monster films represent our innermost fears come to life in a physical entity. And they look pretty cool too, I'm not gonna lie. I have my notes for my research that I've been doing on this topic. The first Universal Studios Frankenstein film to come out was in 1931, directed by James Whale, and starred Boris Karloff as the main star of the show. The same year that Frankenstein came out, Bela Lugosi would play the dark vampire Dracula as well. Dracula was produced by Todd Browning. Todd Browning the same year created the film Freaks, which was banned in the UK for 30 years for casting real freak show performers. And Boris Karloff would also steal the show in The Mummy that came out in 1932. You could say the 1930s was the decade for monsters, although Wolfman with Lon Chaney would follow in 1941. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because in 1925, Lon Chaney also was in the film Phantom of the Opera and played the Phantom. So why did the 30s produce so many monster films? Well, the main reason was escapism. This was during the Great Depression. And so there was a lot of suffering and economic crisis going on within the world, and a cheap way to get away from all that was to go to the movies. In a way, Universal Studios was saved by these monster films. Another element not really talked about a lot is the impact that World War I had on people and veterans alike. Many people were left scarred and changed forever by the brutality that they witnessed. This is why Todd Browning's Freak Show really rubbed people the wrong way. The grotesque depiction of the real life performer shocked people and arguably made them very uncomfortable, especially amputees that could be viewing this film from after the war. Monsters represented contemporary social anxieties. Frankenstein could be classified as the social working class that had been forgotten. Dracula could be feelings of powerlessness. The Invisible Man that came out in 1933 could be scientific ambition maybe gone way too far. Now, the golden age of Hollywood would introduce the creature from the Black Lagoon in 1954, quite a few decades after all the rest of the Universal monsters came out. Jack Arnold directed the film, and Rico Browning and Ben Chapman was the fish swamp monster. This film struck a lot of fear in the hearts of Americans amidst the Cold War that was going on, symbolizing the unknown and the dangers of tampering with nature. The Gilman humanoid embodies contamination or even the anxieties about aliens. Now, skipping back a decade, in the 1940s, Cat People would come out just 1 year after The Wolfman. Cat People, directed by Jacques Tourneur, was a bit of a different creature feature because the main lead was a female who happened to represent a feline. Simone Simon plays the human hybrid feline, and it is laughably represented as a cat. Of course, a lot of women are compared to as cats or felines, and a lot of symbolism in movies, books, media, you got it. A lot of people argue about what this movie's about, but I think that it most is represented by repressed sexuality and honestly just pure misogynistic views on how women should act back then. Back in the 1940s, women were shamed for feeling sexual desire or being in tune with their sensuality. This movie broke the stereotypes for a lot of those women. It also probably put a lot of fear in men who thought that women were probably waking up to it all. Let's see, we haven't covered mummies or zombies yet, but I'm pretty sure it's obvious what those two represent. The fear of death. What happens when our corpses are decomposing into the earth? Do we come back to life decomposing, or do we doom ourselves to wander alone forever and isolated while others are living? Honestly, the crazy thing about monsters is that they aren't just fiction, we kind of just live among them. Other humans. I think I'd rather hang out with the Wolfman or the creature from the Black Lagoon any day over Ted Bundy or Dahmer. Monsters will continue evolving as society grows more anxieties about the current world that we live in. Right now in 2026, more and more dystopian thriller horror is coming back up into a lot of the markets. I mean, do you think that somebody will create like an AI monster or maybe create more alien type films. I genuinely have no idea what direction that we're going to be going in for that. But I will say that as long as the world keeps turning, society will always find a way to create a monster to cope with the evil, crazy world that we live in. And I think that's why it's been going on so strong for so long now. I don't know what's people's favorite type of monsters. Mine has to be probably Dracula or Frankenstein's creature. Those two are probably my favorite. Third is probably Creature from the Black Lagoon. But I've always loved these films, and they've been growing on me more and more as the older I get, and the more that I see the world's turning and where the direction of the world is going. And I always just found it very interesting to know about how people back in the 1930s felt about these monsters as well, and if it scared them. But if anything, I think it comforted them in a way to know that no matter where the world was going after World War One and, later on going into World War Two, they had these movies to kind of escape into. And if you notice, a lot of the monsters within the films, they all took place in like a different country, away from America, away from the United States. And I learned that the reason why is because they wanted it to seem farther away from the US because there was already so much turmoil going on here. And it gave people a certain sense of safety to know that we don't have to worry about a creature coming over here. We don't have to worry about, a Dracula coming all the way to the US. They're going to be in Transylvania, or they're going to be in the Amazon River, like the Creature from the Black Lagoon. So I find it so fascinating. There's so many good books about this, but I really recommend that one book. It is a little bit long, but it's so interesting that I didn't even really notice, how long it was taking me to read. I just devoured it in like a week. So I seriously recommend doing some research on it and reading that book because it's really interesting about how people used to feel about all this stuff. Anyways, stay creepy, stay monstrous, stay expired. Um, yeah, that's all I have for today.